Okay, so now we were going to move on to the next one, and we are going to review Dark Waters. And this is a psychological thriller. This one, what was it on? Was it on Netflix?
You didn't write your notes?
I didn't write down whether.
Cares? It doesn't
I
matter.
can't remember
It's
if it's either
platforms.
it's either on Netflix or
Amazon Prime.
or Amazon Prime, and I'm sorry, I'm not sure which one that is. I didn't write it down. But what did you think about that? It's a psychological thriller. So keep in mind too that a lot of these are psychological thrillers. They're not blood and guts. Some of them are, and I'll tell you when they are. Blood and guts are not my favorite. I like more psychological thrillers where they're not showing you everything, but you know what goes on in your mind is a lot worse than just someone showing you blood and guts. But I can't watch it. So what did you think about Dark Waters? Well, we should talk about what it's about a little bit.
Yeah, you go with the premise.
Okay, so Dark Waters is another, actually it's so funny, it's another mother-daughter type of movie, just like Uma was. And the mom is going through a divorce, and they just show in the beginning just a lot of stress. Like you could see that she is under a lot of stress. She's had a kid, she wasn't working. And now all of a sudden she finds herself having to get an apartment, having to start her life over with a daughter that's probably, how old? 5 maybe?
No, she's not 5. She's like, she's in grade school. She's like 8 to 10 years old.
I'm
like
so
4th
terrible.
grade.
I have kids and I can't place ages. I don't know why.
5.
I don't know. Okay, anyway, so she has this young daughter and she has all this.
6, 7. Yeah, she's around the 2nd or 3rd.
Okay,
grade.
so let's just say she's between 6 and 8, because we don't know. Okay. Anyway, she's under a tremendous.
Oh no, we know. She's like 6 because she's in kindergarten doing Itsy Bitsy Spider.
Oh, okay.
Kindergarten.
Solve the problem.
There you
Okay.
go.
So the story is really about a mom starting her life over, and the divorce is very bitter with her and her husband. Like they're not even cordial. They can't speak to each other. The mom is at a total disadvantage because she basically they're not showing you her life. They're just showing you like that you feel for her immediately, that she is at a total disadvantage because she wasn't working. She was staying home and raising the daughter. And you get the sense that the dad had a much more, like his life wasn't affected all that much. It's stable. Like he has a stable life and she's the one trying to figure out, how do I survive now? But you can really feel the amount of stress that she's under. And then on top of that, she's the one moving into a new location. She has to find something that she can afford, and it ends up being kind of like she's in New York, but she has to move into a different city, and it's kind of a dump. And boy, they make it look so depressing. Like it's
just across the bridge. That's all.
But the way that they film it looks like the projects. It looks really like. Why are you smiling at me?
No,
okay.
I like how you observe like those.
Oh, okay.
Those type of communities.
It looks really suppressed. Everything is kind of with a dark screen and like a blue screen, which creates this mood that things are really like depressing.
It seems like they use a different lens because there was more browns and not much blues.
Yeah,
They
you're
had
probably
browns.
right. It just was dark.
Yeah, they made this.
Sometimes you could really see like
gloomy.
blue screen and whatever, or
wasn't-
green screen type of like coloration to it. Just was a depressing type of. It was just depressing. Like you could feel her anxiety and her angst, and here she is trying to raise her kid under all this pressure. And then you get some inklings that the place that she moves into, there's something weird going on in that location that is ominous. And you don't know, is it a ghost? Is it the place itself seems very sketchy and very kind of what do you call that when slumlordish, because there's all kinds of like water leaking into an elevator, which would scare me, you know, especially after that thing happened in Florida where that whole community like compacted, and I never even thought that that could happen before. And so when I see stuff like that, it's like, oh my God, I would not move in there if I saw that, because I would just be thinking that could happen. So you get all this anxiety, not only from her life and from what she's going through and having to start over, but then also the building itself is like a character. Right, and it's very ominous, and it feels like something's being hidden from you the whole time. And then you have these other characters that are, you know, the manager and the management on site, where he's clearly, both of them are clearly hiding things from her about the building, and it's a lot of stress and anxiety that she just keeps building. So go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Well, you're explaining it. But then there's also a hidden messages. This has been done before, this type of story.
Yeah.
So it's not nothing original in how they deliver it, but you wonder how they're going to deliver it. It's that whole idea of a ghost or someone that's trying to send a message to find them. It's a common thing in certain movies that we've seen in the past, right?
Yeah.
That's what it's about. But also the other picture, the other thing that makes it, that you didn't mention in the beginning, like explain, but also the character of what it's about. The bigger picture is about abandonment. Because the mother, remember the mother in the beginning has, you trauma. It's all about trauma and abandonment and those things. So you see things repeating, but then sometimes it takes one to know one in order to find that, to get that message across, right?
Yeah.
So people feeling guilty and all that, because because that's what it's really about. Yeah. But then of course all this knowing the story of what it is, knowing that okay, this is what it is, we've seen this narrative, okay, a ghost is trying to call out to give you that you think they're scaring you, but they really just want you to help them so they can move on. Yeah. But there is a twist. There is a twist.
And don't tell them. No spoilers.
Yeah. That's the thing for me. I'm always trying to find what is the bigger lesson in this, because there's always something in what the writers are trying to get. What else can you pull from it besides the scariness or someone helping you, both making that connection? I think the thing that made me still want to watch it, because it did, from the mood, it made it very moody and solemn and like sickness. The colors, so they really did a good job making that mood. If you just want to be like, whoa, this is kind of very moody, I don't know. Yeah, it definitely does that.
And her face showed it, and
they did a good job.
But also, her as a mom, like, you could relate to, or a parent in general, you know, going through hard times and raising kids, that you're trying to put on a face of happiness. So there were definite things in the movie where she was a great parent, and her dad, they were both loving, but it also showed the realness of how parents make stupid mistakes. Yeah. You know, and you're like, what are you doing? Like,
all the other
there's some things in there, and you're like, no, that just would not happen. You know, you can't let your daughter do that. You know, that's just asking for her to get hurt.
But then that's all part of.
But that's the angst, right?
That's what they do in the movies. They always do that obvious thing where people talk, right? You talk like, oh yeah, what a great parent, letting the kid just kind of do whatever right there.
Yeah, so there were moments, normal, right?
You get all those moments, and I think
where we get to judge the characters, and also maybe that's also part of the ploy to keep us guessing of whether or not this parent is good or bad, because as Willie pointed out, she's flipping back and forth into like she's having her own flashbacks of her own parenting and her own abandonment. And then she's
from her mother,
right, from her mom, and then she's trying to do the opposite, just like with Uma. She's trying to be the opposite parent, but you see how some of that crosses over when you're dealing with your own trauma, or you hadn't fully dealt with your trauma. Eventually you have to deal with it. So there is kind of a twist ending, so we're going to leave that to you, but let's go ahead and give the review.
I think it's one of those, both of these movies, or that movie, Uma,
Dark Waters
and Uma, those are good movies that you could get more out of if you watch it 2 times, 3 times.
And
because there's clues, because it makes you think. So I was like, okay, because you see things, you're like, what does that mean? But
Yeah.
then you go back, you could kind of probably see more clues.
Yeah.
So I think that's what probably makes it a better movie.
Yeah.
It's not just cut and dry. You could go back and go, oh, there's some more clues.
And that's
it's
true,
like
I
a
think.
scavenger hunt in good movies.
Yeah, and I think
The symbolism
I
that
think
you
that's
get.
true too, because the storyline is more than just the jump scares or to scare you. They're actually telling you a story of trauma, and each trauma story is slightly different based on their own upbringing. And so you can watch that many times and other things are going to stand out to you, or it could even be helpful in someone dealing with their own trauma to kind of outside themselves witness other people going through it and then being able to relate to, yeah, that happens to me. So I think that those two are great movies. Now, the Dark Waters movie, actually the original is a Japanese movie, which we haven't watched yet, but I saw a little clip of it when I was doing some research, and it looks very scary.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely watch that one too, and probably that will show up in a review later. So I think for me, review wise, I think I want to give it like a 4.8 on that one in particular. What do you want to give it?
I felt there were some things missing because I noticed certain cuts.
Yeah.
Like they didn't stretch
That's why
out
I gave it a
certain
4.8.
Yeah. So I didn't like it as much as the other one. The 4.38. It kind of was like solid.
Is
4.
that
It's
what?
a good-
A 4. What did you give it before?
Actually,
I'm gonna look down here at my little list here. So let's see. When I asked you before, you said 3.84.
Okay, there you go.
He likes little numbers.
No, that means 3.8 to 4. Like that's what I was just said.
Okay.
There
Okay,
you go.
so there you go for that one. We both would recommend that you still watch that. Yes, I definitely do. I think that's a good one.
The Dark Water movie is not a good movie if you're not in the right disposition, because it's very moody.
Okay, so the next one that we're going to talk about is called Halloween Party. This one is on Prime, okay? So tell a little bit about what the story is.
You're a better narrator. You're the story. This is
No,
your
you're fine.
channel.
Okay.
I'm just a accompaniment.
Okay, so let me see. Let me try and remember
I'm just
this.
the sprinkle. Remember, I'm the frame.
You're the frame around. He's
Right.
my frame.
I'm the
Okay.
frame.
Halloween Party was interesting. If I watched it in the movie, I wouldn't have been as happy to have paid for it. But it could almost be one of those movies that you love to hate. It is good. I don't think it's something that you would want to pay like theater prices for, but you're quite happy watching it for free on Prime. It had an interesting storyline, and so
Which made it intriguing, I guess. But it was something kind of been done before some of the past several years of
Yeah.
movies with technology and people hacking
yeah.
and then scaring you and that kind of thing.
So tell them what the whole computer technology part is. Tell them that.
How it starts is, someone hacks in someone's computer and gives them only 50 seconds or so many seconds to type in their biggest fear.
I think it's 30 seconds.
Or something
isn't
like
it?
that.
It's
very
not
short.
enough.
It's not,
yeah.
It's like something like 45 or 50, something not that much.
Yeah.
And but they have to be honest. And you type it in.
And what is the question they ask? Oh, what is your greatest fear?
Yeah, what is your greatest fear? And basically they have to type in, but they have to be really honest what their greatest fear is.
Because they could type something else in.
Yes, yeah, and then if they don't do it in the right time and they're not completely honest, somehow the computer knows that you're not honest. So that's what makes it spooky.
Yeah.
So they're like, no, you gotta be real. And
And
all of a sudden, if they're just pretending something else that they're scared of, and then once the time goes off, and then if say they didn't put in their fear, what happened was their fear would come true.
Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting thing. There's some movies that are kind of like that.
There's been some other
something like
better movies, I think,
or maybe
like
or more
that.
interesting. But it's
I don't
that
remember. There's one
idea
in
is
particular.
so
yeah.
so that's
like
always
countdown
interesting.
movies and that sort of thing.
Yeah. I know there's a couple, but I know I've never seen those.
Yeah, I can't remember the names of them either. But yeah, so the premise has been done before. But the thing I think that makes it a little ominous is that you don't know, how do they know?
Yeah.
Like, how do they know that it's true or not? So you think this has to be someone who knows these people. And it will just appear on people's computer screens, and then nobody really knows, well, what happens if you, like, a lot of times people will answer it because they're afraid of what might happen if they don't, and then other people are like, ooh, we want to see what comes up. Right, and there's like a rumor that a witch pops up on the screen.
Oh yeah, and that's right, the witch.
And some people, you know, they just want to see the witch, right? But then they regret that later because when the witch pops up, now all of a sudden their actual fear is going to present itself. And during that time, you don't know, is this really happening to them, or is it just making them go crazy? Yeah. Like, but like, they legitimately see it, or did it really happen?
I think when it comes, the movie that popped into my mind, what this movie does is kind of like Scream. Like, someone calls on the phone, and then you're like, okay, who is it? It has to be someone that you see that's in the shot. So I think on every shot, there's new people being presented. In my mind, I was always thinking, wait, could it be them? Could it be them? So it keeps you constantly, wait, how are they knowing? So you're trying to figure out the puzzle. I think that's what that movie did for me, make me think about all those things, which is a fun thing. It's like, okay, it's like, who did it? And then
when they figure out, without telling you guys, when they figure out how the computer keeps turning on the screen, without telling you too much, they find something, and this is where the historical piece comes in.
That's what kept me.
Yeah, and this is why I said this one is pretty good, because we didn't know.
Addition, yeah.
We didn't know, first of all, who's doing this, right?
And why.
Why are they doing it? And then they, you know, after a couple of times, you start to realize there's a why, there is a why, and they're going to tell us, but they're not going to let us know right away. It's like all these little puzzle pieces that these two people come together to try and figure it out. And so the whole time, you wouldn't guess it. It's not.
We're not going to spoil it.
No, it's totally not typical, which is why I thought it was pretty good, because I literally did not know where they were going to go with it and how were they going to wrap it up, because it was like you said, there could be 3 different possible endings or reasons why this was happening, and I had no clue what they were.
80% in the film, going through it, then I kind of predicted the ending, but I'm not going to say it. But if you kind of been watching movies and know how things end, I was like, oh, this is how this is going to end.
And I did guess that one part, like, oh, you know, they had part to do in it, you know, like you could figure it out, because
certain things that happen in movies, it's almost like Lady in the Water, like that guy who talks, like he knows all the scenarios of the storyline on every scary movie. It was almost
the critic that gets eaten.
Yeah.
And you're happy to see him get eaten is it, towards the end, because he's so obnoxious.
That's a good
that's
movie,
an M. Night Shyamalan movie, which we're not critiquing right now, but we love everything M. Night Shyamalan, because he is psychological thriller, and he doesn't show you everything, and that keeps you guessing, which is part of what we love. So I do recommend that you watch it, because I think that you'll be entertained by it for sure.
It's definitely an entertaining movie.
Oh, and this one, I gave it a 4, and you actually, when I asked Willie, he actually gave it a 4 too. Do you still stand by that?
That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a solid 4, because it's entertaining and you don't know where it's going.
Yeah. And then throwing, like I said, the stuff that interests me, maybe people like a little bit more depth in the movie, or when they start sharing some kind of historical thing and then there's research behind it. That's always nice. So I always like it when they go into that a little bit, and you see some puzzle and connection to why something happened.
Yeah.
Because in some movies they don't they maybe give you a little snippet and I'm like, oh, I want more of that, and then you could tell there was cuts made It's like, oh, that,
like they really gave it a good effort to
they've actually spent time on that
deepen
part.
this, like to give you some historical reference to flesh out the story.
Yeah, so it didn't feel like
it
this
didn't
young
get cut,
college.
you know,
It didn't have this
and it could
young
have gotten
kid.
cut, you know.
Yeah, it could have gotten
They
cut,
could
and then it
have
would
cut
have felt
some
like
of
a
that
young
slasher kind of dorky movie.
Well, just a young, scary movie that's with that doesn't give any more depth of substance to it.
And gore wise, it really wasn't gory, right? I don't remember.
Yeah, well, not really. No.
A little bit,
but not really. It's more
because they didn't show you. Yeah,
so that's good. They had some little things, but we won't give away any of that.
Yeah, there were some little things, but it wasn't like overtly gory or where you're going to be covering your eyes. It's
because
more
it was more
suspenseful.
suspenseful that made it more scary on certain things that came about.
Yeah, so high five on a 4. Solid 4. We highly recommend it, right? You recommend it?
Sure.
Okay, so this is going to be our last one for this spooky review video, and this is the movie that's currently on Netflix, and it's called Day Shift with, what's his name? Jamie Foxx. And what's the other guy? His name?
I always forget.
Not
Snoop Dogg's in it.
No, oh yeah, Snoop Dogg is in this, and he does a really good job. So Day Shift is really, it's a cute movie.
Cute.
I think I think maybe cute is probably not the best thing because I covered my eyes during most of it. It's gory, but it's also
It's not
cute.
Gory.
It is gory.
No, it's not Chainsaw Massacre.
No, but
no.
I have
the
my own
fighting
point of view.
scenes.
I have my own point of view, and you
Yes,
can say
yes.
your definition. My definition of gore is when you're seeing a lot of blood and guts. Okay. This movie has a lot of blood and guts in it and straight up violence, literally
Yes, I
to the
guess
point where I couldn't watch it. Like, I literally did not watch the majority of the scenes of fighting. I could hear it and I knew what was going on, but I was like this, like, I can't watch this because I get affected by seeing that stuff. I can't see, you're literally seeing people get their heads cut off constantly. Lots of just people being impaled. What am I missing? What
That's all
other
they
violence?
Need to know. I think people get the picture.
The kind of
what
like
you mean.
kickboxing type of like
martial arts.
Martial arts. There's a lot of martial arts, which I was able to watch those. So it's not like I was blinded the whole time. When they would start fighting and doing kind of martial arts spins and kind of almost matrixy moves.
You just didn't like the finish.
Yeah, I would watch that, but then I
when
knew when the death thing was going to come most of the time, and I would just be like, okay, I can't watch this because I knew it was coming. But sometimes I didn't know when it was coming because people would get their heads cut off in a very creative way, and I'm not going to tell you how Jamie Foxx's character does this. I don't want to spoil it for you. But at the same time, I did think it was kind of cute because there was, I don't know, there's just like funny.
Well, there's.
I don't know why I think it's
it's
cute.
the actors, but then it's always funny to watch a movie that's like that, but then also has a comedic thing to it because, of course, there's Jamie Foxx
And they're in LA, by the way.
they're in LA.
Killing vampires.
Yeah, so it has that whole other.
Another divorce.
Yeah, we haven't talked about. I'm just talking about.
I know, but I got to tell them some of the movie because we're talking about it now.
Well, yeah, the big picture. It's always a lot of it's stuff that's been done before.
Yeah.
But in a different way. There's always something going on. Maybe someone's down on luck or got a divorce, or he still loves, but he's trying to be a good father. Like all those scenarios.
It's like a romantic comedy horror show.
Not
that's
overly,
why,
but there's
there's
more.
these
It's more of a comedy, but it's not too much of a romantic part. It could if they.
That's
if they
right,
want.
comedy. It's like
comedy.
a comedic horror show.
Yeah,
That's right. That's the better way
horror.
to say. There is this element of relationship with his
Well, you gotta
soon
connect
his
it.
ex, and he still loves her, and she still cares about him. And there's a little girl, and the little girl is cool because she's like, you could tell that she's learning, she's growing up, and she's going to be a badass, right? She's not scared
like
of
her father.
anything. She's really like her dad. But also the premise is the ex-wife and the daughter don't know what he does. And
So it's like a Men in Black type of vibey thing.
yeah, so like you said, the stories have been kind of done before, but there's this
But
cutesy element because
there's a newness to
it's
the
a very
comedy horror
fantasy,
and,
right? It's a fantasy, so that's where to me like the cutesy like comedy kind of comes in with Snoop Dogg, and he's like this badass, like known for being the best vampire slayer, and he's always like cool beans, like
Yeah, he's just being funny.
he's just being the way Snoop Dogg really is, but he's like a vampire hunter, and you believe him, like it's believable. Like I think he did a good acting job because
For
he's just
people
being
who
himself.
also been following, us growing up, Jamie Foxx, Snoop Dogg, people like who are a little bit
In Living
older,
Color.
and all these histories, so you know that they're friends in real life. So it's always nice to when you know those connections and you see them working together. You could tell it's just like natural. So there's this natural
Yeah.
thing that you like to
Vibes
see
going on between
yeah
them. Yeah.
yeah so they're just, you could tell they probably enjoyed themselves filming this movie and stuff. So
Yeah, they were just vibing off each other, and the music.
yeah, the music, they bring back old school stuff, which is nice. It's like, okay, they're just keeping it real LA West Coast type of vibe type of thing. So
Yeah.
it's a good movie. I was entertained by it because it's just definitely a lot of slayering and all that fighting. So yeah, there is a lot of violence, but what's interesting, just so if you don't know, I guess vampires don't bleed red blood. So I guess that's what made it to me like, oh, doesn't seem as bad because the blood is black.
But when they were being killed, it was red.
real.
Yeah, it was red because then after they turned.
Yeah.
But the other thing that you bring up too, and this is the only thing for me, is that there were a lot of vampire storylines going on there that were kind of new concepts, and
Yes.
I found myself confused. I didn't understand because
didn't elaborate too
it's
much,
cool
just
if they
stuff
would
like-
flesh this out, because just like everything evolves, why
Yeah.
wouldn't vampires evolve as they intermingle, right? And so they
was something cool there.
alluded to the fact that there were different sects of vampires, just like there's different cultures, right? And they do things differently, and like these
Culturally.
ones don't ever socialize with these ones, you would never find them together. These ones are, these ones nest, these ones do this. And then some vampires now could be with humans or can be outside, and I didn't feel like they really explained it enough where I could understand, so I just had to accept it as part of the storyline. But I would have liked to understand. It was enough, but I would have liked to understand that concept a little bit more so I could understand, because at the end you kind of have like some vampire people somewhat, friendly with the other people, and I didn't really understand how or why that was possible, because normally when a vampire gets bit, they just turn, and then they can no longer be around a human because they just smell blood and they just want to kill you. Yeah, or be in the light.
They talked about that a little bit.
They talked about it,
we
but
won't give that away.
Yeah, but I guess for
They
me,
can
I just
elaborate
left
it.
not really understanding how that was possible, but I accepted it because it was all in really good fun.
Yeah.
So even despite the gore of it that I couldn't watch, I thought it was kind of a really fun movie.
Yeah.
It was like if Disney put out a vampire movie.
Yeah.
To me,
funny.
I liked it. So
It was like watching maybe like a Kevin Hart.
I think
type of
I'd give it a
comedy.
4.8 because I just didn't like that much gore.
I don't know what I gave it. I gave it a good 4 or 5 or something.
Okay, let's see what Willie gave when I first
give it-
asked him. He gave it a 4.5697.
Oh yeah, there you go. 4.
He wanted to give a statistical number,
Yeah.
a full-on 5 number review.
Yeah.
Okay, so clearly both of us would recommend that you guys watch that.
Oh
So
yeah, can't go wrong because this is a good entertaining.
yeah,
movie.
it's very entertaining.
Very action,
for sure.
and if you like fighting scenes and
Martial arts,
acrobat,
blood and gore, fantasy,
Yeah, it has a lot
comedy,
of it has a little bit of everything.
old school.
Yeah. So it just
Good music.
It's nostalgic. Has a lot of nostalgia in it and stuff. So it's cool.
Yeah. Okay. So that is it, you guys, for today's spooky review. We will be back for many more spooky reviews, right? You're gonna do it with me.
I guess if she forces me,
I'm gonna
to.
force him. He won't do it unless I push. But we're gonna be back for the spooky review. So in the edits, Willie basically let me know, like, he wanted to explain how and why he would give somebody a 5, or just to talk about it. So I want to honor that and talk about, let you say what you wanted to say.
Because some people have that too when you hear some people talk about films. So my thing is, it's so hard for me to gauge what is a 5 or anything that, especially if you're an artist or something, what are those things? So the movies that really captivated us, say in our generation growing up, like Halloween or Nightmare on Elm Street, the first one, or those classics, Friday the 13th, or those classic movies that you're like, whoa, that was original. Like it made such an impact. So those are kind of like the 5s. So when I'm watching a movie or going, did it make me get to that point, like that sensation when you were young watching like Night of the Living Dead, and that sensation, you're just like, whoa, like did it put me in that state?
Okay, so that's how you're comparing it.
I'm comparing it to those young feelings when you were young watching these movies or for the first time, and that really impacted you and created this whole culture.
Stay spooky!